Hey everybody, welcome to the Academy of Insurance's webinar after show. I'm your host George, and joining us on today's after show is not only the director of the Academy of Insurance, but also today's instructor. The webinar was Commercial Property Masterclass, the session 6 of this year, additional coverages, coverage extensions, and optional coverages. And the instructor for today was Mr. Patrick Rate. Patrick, welcome to the after show. How are you?
Thanks, George. I'm great. We had a great class today, and boy, it seemed like it went by fast.
It did. Lots of questions. I think even a minute or two overtime. So anyone purchasing this webinar after the fact will get an extra 2 minutes free of charge. That's
Free.
Yeah. There was a lot to cover today, and I was just curious. A lot of the coverages, like a lot of the payouts for a lot of the things, like there was a certain amount of money that coverages went up to covering, like and the figure seemed to be $10,000 for a lot of the coverages. Why is $10,000? Why does that seem to be the median or the top one? And when was that decided on? Because you said a couple of times, well, that seems a little low for what it's covering. Is that an old figure on the policy, and do you think it should be updated?
It's kind of old. It's some of those limits in there have been like that for as long as I've been in insurance. So that they've been there a while. As to they were probably not enough when they were first written into the policy anyway. And in part, it's because it's easier sometimes to get a very limited and restricted coverage approved rather than completely exclude something. So, for example, the pollution cleanup coverage, there's not a lot of money there, and it's nowhere going to be enough if there's an actual pollution event that needs to be cleaned up that this policy would cover. But it's something, and that's better than nothing. And some of these things were set at a fairly reasonably low limit, in part because that's kind of a baseline to start with, where there may be more money available by use of an endorsement, or a company might add a policy enhancement using their own forms as well.
Gotcha. You talked about debris removal in a couple of the forums, and you said that I believe it was 180 days to get rid of the debris, or it wouldn't be covered anymore. Is that correct? And is there ever a chance to extend that, or what happens on the 181st day? No more coverage?
Yeah. They've got to report that amount that's necessary within 180 days in order to get the money. And so that's to motivate the insured to go ahead and get things moving, get a quote for the debris removal, get somebody out there to get the things done so that they can get the building back under construction and get things moving forward. After 180 days, the possibility exists that the insured may just not want to rebuild their building, and that's fine. That's their prerogative, but they're just not going to get any money for the removal of that debris if they delay on it.
We went over different things, like how outdoor property is covered and how debris removal expenses are covered. So if there's a shed, is that considered outdoor property? And if something happens to it, like a natural disaster, and the shed collapses, is it still considered outdoor property, or is it then debris because it no longer resembles something that looks like property?
Sure. And that kind of depends on the shed, if you will. A shed building, or maybe a small barn, something like that, that could be listed as a separate building on the policy, in which case it would be covered as a building would. And of course, once it's damaged, once it's destroyed, it becomes debris, and that's what we're trying to get rid of with the debris removal. Some of those kinds of really little sheds that those little plastic things that people put together and set out on their porch or whatever, those things, that's going to be personal property.
Gotcha. I mean, it's so complicated. I like the the form that covered print material, that was kind of interesting. And it didn't or didn't cover electronic material. Can you go over, like, if I have a book or a file on paper but it's not backed up, I mean, what can you go over that part again? It was really interesting about.
Yeah, sure. We got two different places for there to be coverage. One, there's some coverage for electronic data that's stored in computers, and that's going to be the business data. That's going to be customer records. That might be accounting files. That might be even intellectual property. And there's a little bit of coverage for that. There's also a little bit of coverage for valuable papers and records. That's what you're talking about there, and those are those papers and records that are not stored electronically, but they may need to be replaced, researched, and restored, so that you can rebuild those papers. And it used to be people had all their valuable records on paper. They had all their accounting ledgers. They had deeds, and they had the surveys and all that, and more of that stuff is being stored electronically. But there are certain things that for right now, at least, it appears that they'll always be done on paper for whatever reason, and whether that's a good thing or bad thing is another thing altogether. But the fact of it is that the policy provides a little bit of coverage to restore or replace both records in electronic and paper format, and each of those kind of excludes the other.
Got it. Super complicated, but it doesn't have to be, and that's what we're here for, to help break these things down. So great. And that was session 6 today.
Session 6. Yep.
Correctly.
So it's 2 more.
And when is session 7, and what does session 7 cover?
Session 7, I think, is July. Not that one. That one, July 8th. And that's causes of loss forms and exclusions.
So Thursday, July 8th. Excellent. And next week, we've got a couple of classes that are really interesting with a little bit of subjects that are off the beaten track a little bit. The Tuesday, June 15th, getting ready for your close-up, preparing for virtual mediations with Winter Wheeler. And June 17th, the return of Joe Gianfola, reconciling contractual liability and the additional insured. The devil is always in the details. Mm-hmm. Patrick, can you give us a little bit of an inkling of what we can expect from those 2 classes?
Yeah, I'm really excited about both of these classes, actually. Winter is an attorney, and she is bringing us a class, and she specializes in mediation, and she's been doing a lot of virtual mediation in the last year or so, especially related to COVID. And she's going to talk to us about how to go about a mediation in a virtual environment, and what's going to be necessary to help us to put our best foot forward and have that mediation go successfully. And that, by the way, that's her first session with us. So I'm really excited to bring her on board as an instructor to see how this goes for us. I'm very excited for the session. And Joe Gianfola's reconciling contractual liability and the additional insured. We talked about additional insureds in one of our CGL masterclass sessions, and the issues that come up is that the contracts that require the additional insured status may require one thing, but the policy may provide something different. And if the insured isn't aware of that gap, for whatever reason it's caused, that could create a real issue for them. It doesn't absolve them of their contractual responsibility. It just means that their insurance policy may not cover what it is they think it may cover, and that's where the problem can show up. So dealing with those additional insured endorsements and dealing with those contracts, that's a real complicated subject. I'm looking forward to it.
If I recall, the name of that CGL masterclass was who's an additional insured on the policy and why do you care? Will we care more after Joe's class on Thursday?
Yes, we will care more. Excellent. If we're paying attention.
I will be. I'm so excited for that class. And so anyway, Patrick, thanks very much for another great session of the Commercial Property Masterclass.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure having you in the after show as always. Thank you so much. And
Pleasure's mine.
thank you so much. And on behalf of Patrick and the Academy, this is George saying thanks, everybody. Have a great day and take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.